Arsenal are UCL Champions League finalists after defeating Atletico Madrid 1-0 in the return leg of the Champions League semifinals. And let's talk about what went down, guys, because Arsenal, after 20 years, have reached another UCL final. Now, I think Arteta played his cards right incredibly well today. I think Arteta starts the game off before the game even starts because Luis Skelly comes into the lineup and so does Calafiori. And I think, obviously, Bukayo Saka does as well. But this past weekend, Arsenal played their best bit of football that I've seen arguably all year long. All year long. He had the balls to drop Zubimendi. He had the balls to drop Hincapié. And he had the balls to put an inexperienced Luis Skelly in this scenario because Luis Skelly was able to give Arsenal so much going forward. And that is unlike Arteta at all so far this season, the last couple of years. But Arteta recognized that this game was being played at the Emirates, that they were going to have to go out and get a goal and score in order to beat this Atletico Madrid side. And it wasn't going to be easy. But I want to take my hats off to him because I think that was the key of the game, guys. That was the absolute key of the game. And honestly, on the Atletico Madrid side, we saw nothing too different. We saw the same lineup that we've been seeing time and time over again. They're starting 11. And I think that first half, it was all Arsenal. Arsenal were the ones on the front foot. Arsenal were playing well. Arsenal were enabling Victor Gyokeres. Victor Gyokeres, who, in my opinion, I think I never came around to slandering him. I did come to the point of questioning his maybe his ability to translate his game from the Portuguese league to this one. But the shouts of that he was a fridge, that he was terrible, and all of that. As of late, I started specifically for this one reason. I saw a stat that at Sporting Club de Portugal, he averaged around 40 touches a game. And the other day, he had they compared it to Harry Kane, where Harry Kane averages 36 touches a game. But the way Arsenal had deployed Victor Gyokeres previously, he did not have any service. He did not have anywhere near that amount of touches. He would have so few touches on the ball per game. I think he was hovering in the teens, if not lower, single digits. I think there was the game where they pulled that stat out is where he didn't have a single intervention the whole game. And I think Arsenal's game before this week had lent itself to really minimize Gyokeres' impact in their games. Because he was a player that was used to touching the ball, used to connecting, used to being the target man and finding a better pass. But at Arsenal, they were making him out to seem like he was a fridge, that he had no ability on the ball, that he was just a reference man to hover in the box. But I think today that man deserves all his flowers. The way he dueled it out with Puvil and Lenormand is incredibly well. And not only that, but his goal, Arsenal's goal, comes from a wonderful bit of play where Gyokeres gets the ball as a target man. Oblak comes out, but he retreats. Gyokeres stays calm, cool, collected, doesn't opt for the shot, finds the cross that I think it's Puvil that gets a header on it. Trossard shoots the ball, and it's Oblak who makes the save, but it's Saka who's more attentive than the Atleti defenders and makes it 1-0 for them. Although Arsenal had been the better side, Arsenal had been playing well, they had possession of the ball, and Atleti, and even the way Calafiori, because you saw Giuliano Simeone a lot of the times today, he had to be pinned back because Calafiori was playing so high and wide, pretty much forcing Giuliano to sit back way deeper than normal. That is a very offensive game plan by Arteta. That's something that you don't usually see. And it's because he from the get-go he said, no, we're gonna have to go look for this game. Were they necessarily able to create as many chances as they would have liked? Probably not. But the intention was there. The intention was there. And I have to respect it because I've been clamoring for Arsenal to play much better. And what I saw this past weekend against Fulham is exactly what they're capable of doing. And they aimed to replicate that today against Atletico Madrid. And I thought they did so pretty well. Um, on Atletico Madrid's side, lackluster performance in that first half. Very lackluster. Um, they are missing their best midfielder, Barrios, but it's just from Atletico Madrid's side, they weren't able to make themselves with the ball for prolonged periods of time, and they weren't able to generate opportunities from a positional standpoint, from stagnant. They do well in transitions, but whenever I think Arsenal did a good job of mitigating the amount of transitions that Atleti was able to find themselves today, and when they did, they were stuffing them. They were being dogs. They were fouling them off the counter. They weren't letting them continue. The tactical fouls served Arsenal incredibly well today. Um, and in the second half, obviously, it's Atletico Madrid who is on the front foot that they go have to chase after the game. And they find themselves with a couple of good opportunities, and we're out possessing Arsenal to start the second half. And again, Arsenal still continue to find funnels with Gyokeres, and eventually Subimendi does come on. Saka comes off because obviously he's not fully fit, so he probably can't handle a full 90 minutes just yet. Madueke comes on, but they hold on to with the conservative ball possession relatively well, and Atletico just aren't able to capitalize. Also, with uh Arsenal find themselves with a counter where Gyokeres gets taken down by Marco Villa that just as well could have been a red. Also, prior to that, I know there's a penalty on Griezmann that was initially called, was gonna set to be called, but prior to that, there is the quote unquote foul of Puvil on Gabriel Magalhaes. I think Arsenal are fortunate and get quite lucky there. Additionally, I think it's a pen on Giuliano Simeone as well. Giuliano Simeone gets his chance, gets the breakaway. Gabriel Magalhaes comes around, pulls his shoulder, but in the effort of trying to continue to play the ball and shoot and score, Giuliano doesn't go down. Maybe a bit naively. Can you blame him? I don't know. But I think regardless, that probably should have been a penalty because I've seen things get called for much lighter, by the way. But that's the name of the game. I think there was those two calls, the foul prior to Griezmann's PK, that was a bit shady that went towards in Arsenal's favor, and the penalty on Giuliano Simeone. But on the other hand, Atleti get lucky not to come away with the red after the Gyokeres breakaway, and from then on, it was just that tense intensity. It was nowhere near the quality of the other semifinal at all by any means. But it felt intense. It felt rough. It felt you felt that it was what was at stake. But I mean, Cholo Simeone has. I mean, I don't know. Julian had a knock, right? I'm gonna aim to say that it was Julian that asked for that sub, and I think I saw it was. I'm not entirely sure, but if he out of his own pure will takes out Julian and Griezmann, I mean, I don't get what there is to say, guys. Lookman, poorly enabled today. Weren't able to find them. Atleti's whole game plan really is heavily dependent on finding Lookman and Juliano in transitions today, and they just weren't able to connect. They weren't able to find them in that many advantageous positions. And it's just Arsenal assumed the bigger risk today. They took the bigger risk. They assumed what it was gonna be, and they got the job done. Saka, you can't not be happy for the guy. He's been dealing with injuries all season long, and he comes back just when Arsenal needed the most in the Premier League title race, in the Champions League semifinals, and he shows up. He shows up, and you can't help to kind of marvel at what it means for him. His boyhood club rising through the academies and getting Arsenal through. But besides that, guys, there wasn't much that it was an intense game, of course. There wasn't that much substance to it. Both sides can be very pragmatic when called upon to do so. And although intense, and although with the resources that they had available to them, I think Arsenal do deserve to walk away with the win today. I think they just had that bit of quality more going forward than Atletico Madrid. But I'll just leave it at that, guys. You guys let me know in the comments what you guys made of the game, what you guys thought, who was MVPs on both sides of the pitch, and what do you think this means for Atletico Madrid moving forward, as well as Arsenal. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.